And it's next week. We are back with another show. This one discussing the California weekend. Not too much else happened, so don't expect anything else. I don't want to see a single angry comment talking about why we didn't talk about some random Grand Prix in a country or a continent we are not a part of. We don't know about them.
Lithuanian F2 race. What the heck,
We didn't.
Kyle?
We didn't see them. This is a two-race podcast exclusively. Nothing else.
Formula Antarctica.
So, anyways, as usual, I'm your host. I'm Kyle Riley.
It is the one and only Michael P. Frisch.
I am Matt Wishart once again.
And I am Mike.
And we
Just
had
Mike.
Just Mike. He's actually on the show this week. Did not quit his job, as many of you assumed in the comment section. He's actually here. We have our two.
Home.
He went on
Oh, he is
vacation.
Yeah,
He went
1
to
week
Antarctica.
vacation.
He's just a little stubbed, you know what I'm saying?
He was at the Formula or Antarctica Grand Prix or whatever he was saying earlier.
Nice.
Yeah.
So,
He wasn't kidding.
so anyways, we had two races at the Auto Club Speedway this week to discuss. A lot to talk about in each. More so on the Cup side, but hey, let's just start with Xfinity like we always do. Incredibly tame start to that race. There was a lot of people just kind of minding their P's and Q's. These cars obviously have a ton less downforce than the Cup cars do. First two stages, not too much happened. Brandon Jones was just kind of cruising. Chase Briscoe was the sole source of entertainment, I feel like, the first half of the race. Chase Briscoe was straight drifting that car every single turn. Got up in the wall a few times, caught it a few times. Eventually it didn't work out for him, but we'll talk about that as we get to it. But yeah, pretty much very tame first stage one, stage two. Brandon Jones won the first stage. Second stage was won by, I believe, Harrison Burton? No, that was also Brandon Jones. So, very calm. It was pretty much just people trying to conserve tires because obviously with the Xfinity cars, you have only a few sets per race. I think they had 5 this weekend. And at Auto Club, that's pretty much nothing considering after 2 laps, they're worthless. After that, though, as soon as stage 3 started, chaos.
Absolute chaos, yeah.
5 or 6 cautions right off the bat. There's people wrecking each other, getting loose off of the turns. Because, I mean, let's face it, these cars, while they have low downforce and they have a lot of the rules that a lot of people liked from the Cup Series even back a few years ago, it's still really hard to pass on the long run if you don't have a car that saves tires well. And people were just going for it. People were going 4 and 5 wide on the restarts, and that usually goes the same way it went on the Green White Checker at Las Vegas, where cars are just sideways and getting into one another. Eventually, though, things cooled down a little bit until the 98 car spun off of turn 4, and then it kind of shucked things completely up because a lot of the cars up front felt they had a chance. People that weren't really there the whole day, like Harrison was always in the picture, but Austin Cindric at one point had to come into a restart and was essentially a lap down. He wasn't quite a lap down. And he had to pass all those lead lap guys before even thinking about being a contender from that point forward. You had guys like Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst had a really good day. I'm not
he
one
was just
to...
vibing for a while, and then he kind of crept up there towards the end.
We kind of make fun of Riley sometimes on the show, unfortunately for him, but he definitely didn't give us anything to make fun of this time. Had a great solid day, didn't cause any trouble, was racing really hard, and definitely had a really good chance at maybe getting the win, or at the very least, holding his position like he did. That late race chase for the win was really entertaining. I think all of us here enjoyed that when the lap cars got in the way of Harrison Burton. I thought that thing was done. There was 10 to go, 80 seconds ahead of everybody. It should have been a sealed deal, but then we had a pack of like 20 cars on, I think, older tires. There's no reason they'd be getting lapped that quick after a restart unless they had old tires. And Harrison just couldn't get through them as quickly as everybody else, and it shaped up for a really exciting finish. And Harrison Burton came home to get his first ever Xfinity win. And, I mean, I think it's safe to say that everybody was happy with that race. The first half was pretty tame, but it's Auto Club, That's how pretty much every race goes here, even the ones we think about with really high regards, like the 2014 Cup race or even the 2013 Cup race. Those races were, about half the time of just getting to the finish, and then everything in that was crazy was at the end, except for 2014 with the tires. But what did you guys think about this race?
I had a really good time. Personally, for me, it was very stressful just hoping that everything went okay with the 44 car, Tommy Joe Martins, because it's been a difficult start to the season. Missing Daytona, and then having issues at Las Vegas while they're running really good. And even this past Saturday, they're running really good. Tommy Joe got all the way up to 11th at one point on a restart, and it was kind of vibing around like top 15 most of the day. Had a had a tire issue late in the race, and that's why he ended up going another lap or a lap down again after getting the lucky dog, which that was also stressful because there was who was it? It was Vinny Miller, kept being put a lap down like right towards the end of the stage, and so it's like, dang, can't get the lucky dog. But all in all, ended up being a good day for him. Got 18th. Also, shout out to Josh Williams in the DGM 92 car. Got a top 10 at Auto Club. Crazy. Absolutely stoked for him because he's a good kid. I say kid, but like guy, you know. Great team, and it's just nice to see stuff like that happening, as well as RSS Racing with Ryan Sieg again running top 5 like all day, like he did last week. Yeah, really love to see that. And Myatt Snyder in his first start for the team, you know, coming off of running for RCR, it's like, what can you really expect? I don't think people really expect, not because of Myatt, but because it just, you know, the 39's on a whole nother level in that team. And the 93 is, I mean, Jeff Green is the crew chief now, so like that probably plays a factor too. But I don't think people really expected an 11th place finish ahead of Justin Allgaier and other people like that. But another good week for the smaller teams. Jeremy Clements got 9th, which he's been creeping up the order year after year. And just kind of like in the Cup race, which we'll get to, you know, you had the people in the front running away, like you had Chase Briscoe run away. There was a point in time where Daniel Hemrick had the lead for a bit. He didn't really get to run away as much, but yeah, and Brandon Jones, obviously, he finished like 30th. It was a tough day at the end for him, but he took off in the first 2 stages. But once you got a little farther back in the pack, it was another brawl, and it was also cool to see Anthony Alfredo, who made his first Xfinity start ever and got 6th and ran pretty damn good all day.
The Pasta Man.
Yeah.
Reppin' FaZe Clan.
Really quick.
Yeah, reppin' FaZe Clan.
We need to talk about his nickname for a second because
I know.
I hate it.
I know.
Well, it's not pasta.
It's a sauce.
Exactly. You can't be fast sauce. That's not cool.
Spicy sauce?
Spicy sauce is a different option, possibly, but I feel like you're still gonna get bullied either way. Like, there's no good option here.
If your name's Alfredo, you're gonna be bullied.
I mean, not if you're finishing 6th. If you finish
really.
like 15th, then maybe, but you're not gonna knock somebody who got 6th place in their first ever Xfinity race. But yeah, to build off of what Matt was saying, DGM and RSS Racing as a whole did really good. Not only did Josh Williams in the 92 get 10th, but their other team, the 90 of Alex Labay, finished 13th.
Yeah, he did.
That kind of went under the radar.
And Brett Moffitt in our motorsports, our collective motorsports, 14th. I think he's got Phoenix. I can't remember if he's doing Phoenix or not. I hope he is. But I mean, throughout the entire year so far for that team, it's been a pretty solid effort. Which I mean, we can't. That's kind of expected out of Brett Moffitt. He's pretty much like
he's a wheelman,
the best drivers in the NASCAR circuit as a whole.
Yeah, you could put Brett Moffitt in any contending Cup car, and he may or may not make it to home, or not Homestead anymore. Actually, it's going to be Phoenix, which is depressing, but
yeah,
he'd make it to the Final Four nonetheless. Is what I'm trying to say. And you know, I think we all clown the marketing campaign that they have for the Xfinity series. For years now, they've been saying, "Oh, names are made here," and it's not been names. It's been Kyle Busch. It's been Brad Keselowski. It's been people we knew already, which I think a lot of people detested. I know I'm one of them that have always very much hated the fact that there were Cup guys just dominating the lower ranks in NASCAR. And, you know, it's kind of a catch-22. Last week we were talking about how a lot of the more established guys get taken out of Xfinity and how the racing might suffer from that. But on the other hand, you have to look at the racing reference page for this Xfinity race at Auto Club. If you just look top to bottom, there's a lot of people that you wouldn't have expected to get good finishes there. And some of the more, you know, notable people, Justin Allgaier's been in this series off and on since, 2009? He finished 12th. He finished behind a lot of these really good teams. You know, somebody like Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones gets no credit from NASCAR fans, and even he essentially dominated this race. Which, I mean, yeah, that's to be expected in a Gibbs car, and it took him a while to start being competitive. And you know, he's definitely one of the people that are going to benefit from having a lot of these more, you know, established Cup guys or now Cup guys like Cole Custer, Christopher Bell. Having them leave the series definitely plays a big factor into this, but he's still competing with guys that were really successful last year, like Austin Cindric. You know, just as one example, Ross Chastain is somebody I think we all look at as somebody like Brett Moffitt who could compete anywhere in any car.
Yeah.
And, he gave him a run for his money this week. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these teams shake out. Because right now, it's a vacuum at the top. Anybody can be the best team. Anybody can be the best driver. And I think we're going to see a lot of this year. And that makes me excited because if it's happening at a place like Auto Club where the car means so much, like once we start getting to that summer stretch of road courses and we go to a lot of places like Iowa and Bristol, who knows what we're going to see.
Oh yeah, I expect 100% to see Ryan Sieg finally get a win this year. Like that in my mind, there's no way it doesn't happen, especially at a place like Iowa.
But looking at
and
this, like, how do we rule out the '93 team even? That's
Yeah,
the same
I know.
team.
That's what I was getting to.
They have obviously lesser equipment. Not a lot of those smaller teams. They have very limited resources, and when they do have something nice, like for example, RSS Racing getting the RCR equipment they do have, that's going to go to the 39 team. That's not going to get divided up between the two because that makes no sense financially. It makes no sense in the sense that you want to get one of your teams in the playoffs. That's very reasonable. They've gotten that 39 car in the playoffs multiple times, and now there's so much less competition, or at least established competition.
Yeah.
All that top tier equipment they have is going to go to that one team, and the fact that they got 93 to finish 11th is incredible. I don't know if that was my overperforming. I don't know if that was just a fluky run. I don't know if that was Jeff Green showing he's a god tier crew chief.
I think it's a big mix of it.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have to have funding to end up being in a car, and I know I'm sure Myatt brings a fair amount of funding to that car, so maybe along the season, I'm not exactly sure how many races he's got in the 93. I don't know the exact number, but I assume if things keep going this way, then maybe, they can have that top tier, like better equipment that they're giving at the 39 for the 93. And then we could see 2 RSS racing cars battling in the top 10, like almost on a weekly basis. Because it is kind of, there are a bunch of drivers, like Jeff Green's going to be in this weekend. And Myatt's going to go back to the 21 car. But, there's going to be a little bit of a handful of drivers in the car. I'm not exactly sure the exact list, but if it keeps, like, no matter who's in it, if it keeps, like, performing like this, then I don't see why that won't be the case of having the better equipment for both cars. And then one thing that I kind of glossed over, Austin Hill in the Hattori Racing Enterprises 61 car was having a fantastic day. Unfortunately cut a tire and it hindered his finishing position, but that's also something really nice to see. Is a team that's established in the Truck Series. Obviously they won the championship in 2018 with Brett Moffitt, and even last season when Austin Hill stepped in, I mean, a lot of people, even myself, they're like kind of skeptical, like what's going to happen here. Like, haven't seen a whole lot out of Austin Hill up until that point. But last year he showed like he's fully deserving to be in that car, in that truck rather. And that it wasn't just Brett Moffitt making those results happen for the 16 team over the years that he was in it, but they're established. They are a solid truck team, week in, week out, championship threat all year. And it's nice to see them be able to step up to the Xfinity series and be not, as competitive, but be working every single weekend towards being that competitive and like being a factor,
It's really good to see that for Austin himself too, because anybody who watched any K&N East back in the day, I don't think he actually did any West, but if you watched the K&N East series, you knew that Austin Hill was a good driver, and he caught so much flack when he replaced Brett Moffitt. And I'm just happy to see that, he can redeem himself as a driver in the eyes of a lot of fans. Maybe even he was doubting himself a little bit after that, horrific reaction that was on social media. I don't know if you guys remember, but there were a lot of terrible things getting sent Hattori Racing's way. And, it's just, they can be proud of that decision now. Obviously, Brett Moffitt is an incredible talent. Everybody here knows that. Everybody watching the show probably knows that. But they definitely didn't, they're not going to lose any sleep with Austin Hill in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Or truck.
No way. We love Austin Hill in this house.
So, that being said, that's really it we had for Xfinity. No truck race this weekend, so we're going to get into Cup a little bit early and kind of dive into that. So, the first thing that I noticed really quick is how quick the Chevy teams are. I thought last week, okay, it's one race, not including Daytona. They've had 1 week where they're really a good competitive team. Let's see if they can do that over the long run. Obviously, last week we saw maybe Bowman could have competed for that win had the race gone green. Didn't go that way. This week, however, though, I feel like they were overwhelmingly the most successful manufacturer, which is really surprising. You had Chase up there. You had Jimmy, who's been in the top 5 pretty much the whole day. You had Bowman win the race, of course, and dominate like half of it when Ryan Blaney wasn't leading. And it was just incredible to see the recovery they've made, all from what seemed to be a very minor change from the outside, but evidently there's more that went into this new Camaro than meets the eye.
Yeah, it's after the past few seasons, especially being like a Kyle Larson, Kurt Busch fan, which granted Kurt only just stepped into a Chevy last year, and won a race, and Kyle won a race. But anyway, outside of those like outliers, the Chevy teams have been struggling, and that doesn't help the case of people like Jimmy Johnson and William Byron, who's stepping into the Cup Series at like pretty much a bad time because of that. And then Jimmy Johnson's case of hasn't won since 2017, like the midway early point of 2017 hasn't won. And so it just kind of left a lot of people wondering what was going on. And especially after last week and this week, like it's no question that Jimmy hasn't fallen off like nearly as hard or maybe at all as people were thinking because of, the runs that he was having through 2018 and through last year.
The reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but it's just obviously at this point now we've had all 3 different manufacturers win a race. So that's super cool. It's good to see that level of competition. Like last year and the year before, we had a lot of stretches of like spans during the season where it was like Toyotas are winning or Fords are winning, and then there was never really that Chevy span over the past couple of years. But now it's like bang, bang, bang. All 3 manufacturers have won a race already this season. All 3 have been competitive in all 3 races, and it's just I'm excited. I'm really excited for NASCAR this season.
I feel like Chevy has found a way to balance their stuff out with this package to where they can have that straightaway speed with that turn grip overall. As you were saying, you've seen every Chevy out at Auto Club perform excellent. A lot of Toyotas were struggling. I know Kyle was having a really hard time in the air, and most of the Chevys, they weren't having a hard time passing. I noticed that they can work these cars a lot better than I'm seeing out of these Fords and Toyotas. They can move around a lot quicker and a lot more.
What I'm really excited about is that it seems like they've had the time to figure out the package, because yesterday, if you exclude the bit of a lull in stage 3, which that's just racing, honestly. The racing, the rest of the race was incredible. Like, it's not just pack racing like people thought it was going to be, but it was slide jobs, a big suck with the draft. No, well, I didn't see too much atrocity with the Arab push. There was a couple moments, but it's going to happen. There's air. You're not racing in a vacuum chamber. But it was really entertaining to watch.
Blaney was doing a fantastic job working there. He was just, as soon as he got to that car in turn 1, the homeboy was already down on the white line going, and he was gone. It was just so amazing to see how he can work the car down into the corner and work it down. That was just awesome to see that.
You can really tell that this is what they envisioned last year with the rules, and we didn't get that until now. Whatever development they put in, this is exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, and I know, obviously, like, when you think about it, especially for me, I don't want to see the cars have less power or have more downforce in general, because it kind of takes away from things like what we saw on Saturday with Chase Briscoe wheeling that thing for like 20 laps before he finally spun out. But, like, this is what we're stuck with for the rest of the year. And last year, there was a lot of speculation, and rightfully so, especially with what we were seeing on track. But I think a lot of that, again, as I've said before on the show, I'm no engineer, and I don't make the setups for the Cup teams or anything like that. But last year you had a lot of people, like especially SHR and Gibbs, like trimming the cars out as much as they could to get as much straightaway speed out of it. And it, made the racing suffer, in at least from my perspective, because of that. And you still have teams doing that right now, and that's why I feel like the Joe Gibbs cars were struggling in the air, and Kevin Harvick and some of the other guys. But then at the same time, like Frisch brought up earlier, the 88 car was the fastest car on track basically the entire race. And like you said, I feel like they have found a balance between getting that straightaway speed, but still having enough downforce to be able to drive it into the corner the way you want to, and not really have to worry about people cutting off your air. And I mean, we didn't see a whole lot of we didn't see nearly as much of like aero games, besides side draft, but that's a whole different animal. Besides, like, I'm trying to think who it was, but like an example of it would be like driving down into turn 3, you had the lead car or whoever's in front of whoever's trying to pass. They had to really, really work to try and get down to the bottom in front of whoever was behind them to cut off their air. And, it still did something, because obviously it's going to do something. There's so much downforce on these things right now that it's going to disrupt something. But you didn't see a car just lose grip and just shoot up the track, like, entirely. Like, it was still happening to a degree, but not nearly as bad as it was happening last season. And I'm just... For this to work at a place like Auto Club, where the tires fall off, like, in 10 laps, and still produce a great race throughout, it gives me a lot of hope for the rest of the season, especially for Atlanta, because Atlanta last season, obviously it was race 2, so it was like crunch time. It's time to see like what is going to happen with this package. I think they didn't have the aero ducts there last season because they were assuming that people were going to be using the brakes a lot, so they thought they needed brake cooling, like more so than an aero duct, which they changed at some point. I can't remember exactly, but they kind of just did away with having it different between the 1.5 milers. But that race was it was interesting, obviously, because it was the first race with this, but it was kind of lackluster, which, I mean, Atlanta over the past few years has been hit or miss. There's been some really, really bright points, like the Larson and Keselowski battle in 2017 or 18. I can't remember exactly what year. Which obviously, as a Kyle Larson fan, that was a big sad react when he's decided, I'm just going to run, middle to the top, entering turn 1, and Brad Keselowski's like, okay, I'll go to the bottom and just goodbye. But yeah, I'm really excited for Atlanta. Me and Kyle will be there that weekend to see the race. And before last week and this week, I was kind of like, it's going to be a race and it'll be neat to see. Never been to Atlanta, but now I'm really excited for it, because if they could do this at Auto Club, they can 100% do it at Atlanta, with a track that's like just as worn out, if not more, maybe a little less. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but it's definitely extremely worn out and eats tires, and it's got so much more banking, and you can run pretty much any line that you want to. And I'm just really excited for it. I think it's going to be a slapper. I think it'll be a mix of Las Vegas and Auto Club, if anything.
If it's one thing that I'm really excited for, that throughout this whole entire season, the first 3 races that we've seen, it's been nothing but young guns and new faces that we seen last year that were running 15th or 10th. You have Blaney and Bowman trying to kill each other every week now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna love that if this is a every week thing, because I just love seeing these young guys go just move Harvick or move Bush or move Kurt out of the way. Just completely move them and just run their race and not try to stay behind them. I like seeing that. It shows that how much a win means to them. Bowman being in his contract year, he has to show a lot this year. If he wants to do what he keeps doing, I think he has a really good shot. He is a wheelman.
Oh, yeah.
I think all of us can agree on that, and the NASCAR fan base. But when it comes to sponsorship money and trying to get sponsors,
Yeah, money talks.
Money talks.
And he needs, yeah. And at the same time, another young guy, not super young, but like, rookie in the Cup Series, Tyler Reddick had a fantastic day. And I know a lot of people, myself included, were a little bit, like, I don't want to say worried, but like slightly skeptical of what he'll be able to do this season in an RCR car because there hasn't been a lot of bright moments for RCR over the past few years. I mean, Austin Dillon's gotten his couple
500.
wins, and they're good in qualifying and stuff like that. But that was really it. And to see him shaking it up in the top 10, like going for the top 5 at one point, ended up finishing 11th. Like that was really cool. And I mean, of all places, Auto Club is where I would expect that to happen because while these things are really stuck and we didn't see anybody like self spin at all, I think you could see people were wheeling it. Like there was a point in time in the race where Matt DiBenedetto, who also had a stellar day, the finish doesn't necessarily reflect where he was running because he was top 5 for a long time, top 10 for majority of the race. There was I forget who we were riding on board with, but DiBenedetto was right behind him, and you could see that thing like being loose as hell. Like he was wheeling that thing throughout the entire corner, and it was cool to see. It was no Chase Briscoe level, but it was pretty cool. So that probably played well into Tyler Reddick's hands, to run as well as he did and get the result that he did because he's a wheelman like that. But yeah, that was super cool to see. And one thing that I just remembered happened is I am still mad at Denny Hamlin. I know Kyle Larson isn't mad. Yeah.
The Geico smooth brave moment of the race.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I get it. It's something that we kept seeing throughout the race, and it worked out way better throughout the race, is bump drafting down the front stretch and back stretch and stuff.
Really quick, I just want to point out, he almost did the same thing to Brad going into turn 3.
Yeah.
It was like halfway through the race, he was slamming him the whole straightaway, which, is fine, until you get to the corner and you have to get out of the gas.
Yeah,
he just
gave him one last doot.
Yeah.
And you see Brad get completely sideways, and it's like, oh, dang. We about to wad him up. But somehow he saved it, held onto it. Mixing phrases. But yeah, I'm mad about that because obviously Kyle Larson was my pick last week. And he had a car that could run way better than that. I mean, obviously Kurt Busch ended up P3. He was running top 5, top 10 all day. Before he, just had another smooth brain moment where he just did not see his pit box and just drove straight through pit road. But I mean, that's probably something that we're going to keep seeing this season, maybe at Atlanta specifically, and any other track that's really worn out. I don't know about Darlington, but
Darlington's always its own beast.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that way. But you're going to keep seeing bump drafting. If this race is any indicator for anything, I feel like Michigan is going to be a much better race, because last season it was kind of cool. Like, because they were all like in a line, people were trying to make moves. It was interesting, but I feel like what I brought up earlier with the trying to trim the car out kind of might have played a factor into it not being as good as I originally envisioned in my head when the season started. Like I was picturing like borderline super speedway race, with the way that track is paved and the way that it doesn't really abuse tires too much. So maybe if we can see something like this at Michigan, it is going to be off the wall.
Absolutely. But really quick before we get ahead of ourselves, I just want to recap some of the other stuff that happened in the race. Should anybody listening have not seen it, Alex Bowman won stage 1 pretty handedly. His car and Ryan Blaney's were definitely the class of the field. Nobody could really get close to them other than restarts. Speaking of Ryan Blaney, he ended up winning stage 2. Christopher Bell, man. Christopher Bell has had the worst start to a season in a long time for anybody. He lost an engine, I think it was in the middle of stage 2, excuse me. And fun fact, Christopher Bell is one of the worst drivers in Cup points right now. He's behind Ryan Newman, who only raced Daytona, of course. He's behind David Reagan, who only raced Daytona. He's behind Brennan Poole. He is behind Daniel Suarez, who missed Daytona. And he is nearly tied with people like Reed Sorensen and Quinn Houff. The only person who one-ups him is Ryan Preece, who had 2 really bad races and then got penalized at Las Vegas. Ryan Preece is the next to last driver in Cup points with 6. 6 points. 3 races. That's 2 points a race. And for those of you who don't know, it pays what is it, 1 point for last place. So it's almost impossible to have that little points at this point. But anyways, enough about the bad news, because there's a lot of good things to talk about. As we were saying before, the racing was incredible from start to finish, other than the part where it got really, really spread out in stage 3. But, tires were at Auto Club. Every single Auto Club race has a moment like that.
Yeah.
This year, it just happened to be the finish, and I can live with that. It was a good race, nonetheless. That's not going to
it had everything, because it had the wild restarts that everybody loses their mind over, and I lose my mind over. It's really exciting. Let's be real. But it had somewhat of strategy to a degree, and it had the fastest car won the race. And as much as I hate seeing that when it's somebody like Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin, I mean that it's something that NASCAR still needs to have on maybe not a weekly basis, but on a regular basis, because
it can't always be a lottery.
Yeah, I mean, last week Joey Logano wasn't the fastest car, but he was a fast car, and he won the race, obviously in a much more exciting manner as it was a green white checkered. But like, who was the fastest car last week? Would you think? Was it? I would think
say,
Chase Elliott, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like last week had no shenanigans played out, no tire failures. Chase Elliott was definitely the dominant car at Las Vegas.
I mean, Kevin Harvick led more laps than him, but I don't think. Again, it's something that comes down to what Frisch brought up of Hendrick having some sort of really, really good balance on going fast when you're the leader and still being able to drive the car well when you're in traffic. Because once Kevin Harvick got in traffic, like when he was running down Joey Logano at one point in the race last week, he got to him, but he could not do anything about it because he didn't have the amount of grip. If the roles were reversed and Joey Logano caught up to Kevin Harvick, or anybody on Hendrick Motorsports caught up to Kevin Harvick, that I think they would have had a shot to, make a pass or like do some moves or something before they ate the tires up. But Kevin Harvick couldn't really do anything about it. So, I forget why I'm on this tangent, but those are the facts.
Sometimes you just get so passionate about a discussion that you just start talking, and it all comes right off the dome, and that's what happens here. But anyways, the only thing I didn't really mention is the fact that Ryan Blaney corded his right rear tire with 3 to go. I thought it was really surprising that he had that problem and not Alex Bowman, because they were yelling at Alex Bowman the whole last run, like, slow down. You're going way
they
too
showed
fast.
His tire after his last stop, and it was in the process of cording and looked terrible.
With 7 to go, they had the audio playing on the Fox broadcast, and it said somebody had a vibration. I was like, oh, this is how he loses the race. This is how Alex Bowman has a bad finish. But nope, it was the 12 cars team. And he tried to nurse it home, got to 3 laps to go, and that's as far as he can get with it. Same thing happened to Austin Dillon. I don't know where Austin was running. It was probably about 12th to 13th. That's where he was most of the day. But actually coming to the white flag, he had to pit and do the same thing because his tire was that bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So definitely some tough luck for those two. Poor Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney, if things play out a little differently, he could have finished second, which is an incredible start to the year. But instead, he has had, so many struggles. Still the point leader, though. Still has a 1-point lead over his teammate, Joey Logano. 2 points over Alex Bowman. So definitely, actually, no, never mind. That's definitely incorrect. I
think it's 11 points over
NASCAR.com does something weird where they have the playoff seating already, even though we're 3 weeks in. Okay, so it's impossible to know how it actually is right now. But nonetheless, definitely a very interesting start to the season for that 12 team. They could prove to be title contenders if they keep this up. Same thing for the 88. Daytona's its own thing. But ever since then, those two guys have been the class of the field, really. Alex kind of came out of nowhere last week, but this week, he was there the whole time.
Oh, yeah, he led over 50% of the race.
You knew he was there. You knew he was the guy you had to beat.
They unloaded off the truck with a banger. So
absolutely. Nobody could touch him, really, in the long runs.
Yep.
Except for Ryan Blaney, who evidently somewhere along the line made enough adjustments on that team to have it wear the tires out a little more. Maybe it was just how he was driving. Who knows? I'm not a crew chief. But nonetheless, it is a wonderful day today because I get to introduce a new segment on our show. And it's a very basic segment. It's on several other podcasts or award shows or whatever. It is the worst of the week. And this week it goes to a very special driver. Somebody who got very big mad just because other drivers existed. Our boy, MTJ, Martin Truex Jr., freaking out about every single car around him. Didn't matter if they were side drafting him, passing him clean, holding their own line 10 car lengths ahead. He was going to yell at you on the radio or try to wreck you. And Nothing comes close. The only thing that comes close, and it's just because I saw it just now, is NASCAR.com for some reason having playoff standings after week 3. But
You need to know.
as dominant as Alex Bowman was on the track, that's how dominant Martin Truex Jr. and NASCAR.com are in this award. Nobody comes close. They're the worst. I don't know what that was about. I don't think
Can
we
we
have any
retroactively give it to Riley Herbst for the ARCA Daytona race?
He'll. I almost said something really bad. Yeah, he'll
Or
get
the
the
Xfinity
award,
race.
the award for Daytona. Yeah, if you don't remember, Riley Herbst was a weapon at Daytona. But hey, it's in the past. He finished second last week. Let's see him build off that.
He put on a performance that I never expected to see out of Riley Herbst. Obviously, like, maybe, he'd end up getting a second place at some point this season, but to, like, run down the leader and still have the brain to not just send it in on your teammate and destroy both of you or anything like that, like, that was pretty cool because, he is a young guy and it's his first full-time season in really any of the top 3 series. He didn't run full-time in trucks last season.
No, he ran ARCA since like I don't know,
that's
2010.
right.
It feels like it's been forever.
He seemingly underperformed in ARCA to have a Joe Gibbs car in ARCA, but that's beside the point at this point because that was just a really. I struggle to use the word mature, not because like I don't think he's mature, but like I don't know, it feels condescending or something. But it was a really mature performance from him.
Solid drive for him because he's somebody that's proven he's really not. He has kind of like the same problems people like Natalie Decker do, where either they fade into obscurity or they're the center of attention for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So he brought it home safe and sound in a good position, a place that a Gibbs car should be finishing, and that's something great to build off of.
Yeah, and that's something Austin Cindric's doing a lot of since like the midway point of last season too, because he gets a lot of flack, and I'm not the biggest fan of Austin Cindric, but what really started it for me personally was the CTMP truck race, where he just uprooted Kaz Grala out of the way in turn 5. That left a bad taste in my mouth.
Bring back Kaz.
Since then, number one, we've lost Kaz Grala. I don't know where he is. I'm just kidding. He's at the track a lot of times, but he's not in the car. But yeah, since then, it's really kind of turned around for him. So that's nice to see. He ran really well all day on Saturday and came home third. He was right there with Riley Herbst running down Harrison Burton at the end. And he also didn't make any boneheaded moves to try and make something super special happen or anything like that. He just kind of vibed and took opportunities that he could to try and make passes or like try and make a move, but it wasn't anything blasphemous or something that I would consider stupid personally.
No, great turnaround for the two of them. However, something that a lot of people are mad about and do think is stupid. Not us probably, but people nonetheless.
Oh, jeez.
It's the single lug nut tires. Or wheels, excuse me.
Why do people get so mad, boomers?
Because where's my
stock car? My car don't have one nut.
Why
Where's
must there
my
be
five?
change?
Where's
my
my 5
wide
nut?
lug nuts? But anyways, nonetheless, people are really, really heated about this. If you go to any comment section right now, there's going to be somebody yelling, probably at their family, probably at friends, probably at NASCAR officials. You could find them, usually in the parking lot of your local racetrack, just yelling at people.
Or Walmart.
But they're quite upset about that. Yeah, they're quite upset about what's going on with these single lug nut tires, which I don't think is a huge deal. To me, it literally means nothing. Aesthetically, it looks about the same. I actually was very concerned with that at first because the first time they tested the next-gen car, it looked hideous. It looked like a science project, and not even in a good way. But the photos that NASCAR's put out on their social media pages, it leads me to believe we're going to have a really nice-looking wheel. It's going to be something that's a lot more traditional with what we see on the streets now, instead of going back in time to 1945 and having what we've been running.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, are worried about how this may affect the pit crews and if anybody's going to lose their jobs. I don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong, and only time will tell. I think we're still going to see the quickest and most athletic pit crew guys out going over the wall because, nonetheless, it's the same thing they've been doing before. It's just one lug nut now. You're still going to have to carry a 40 or 50-pound tire around a race car. You're going to have to do that while other cars are going back behind you 50, 40 miles an hour. And you're going to have to do this all in probably still the same amount of time of about 13 seconds. So it's still
Yeah,
going to
or
be really
less.
hard. It might be less now, actually. If they make the fuel tanks a little lighter, we could see pit stops shrink to like 8 seconds, maybe a little
Yeah.
less than that.
And it's not like we don't see mistakes with single lug setups in like F1, IndyCar. I think V8 Supercar has it. Like mistakes still happen. You still have to get the gun on the lug and hit the button or the trigger properly. And I mean, obviously it takes a little bit more of an effort and like muscle memory to hit all 5 like properly and perfect in the exact pattern, but it's still going to be something that they can mess up because human beings are human beings.
Yeah,
And
I
we'll
don't
still see
understand.
the same stuff. Like it's just not meow, 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 meow. Pause. Meow, 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 meow. It's just not that. Which I'll miss that a little bit, but like things are gonna change. Life changes, things change. Your favorite things change. As much as some people don't like to believe that. And that's just the way it goes.
And no one's going to lose their job. It's not like there's a person for each lug nut on the wheel.
Could you imagine though?
20 guys just jump
I
over
still
the
think
wall.
I still think they should have some sort of exhibition race where the driver gets out of the car and makes the pit stop, then gets back in.
That would be insane.
All-star qualifying. We already see it where they come flying into the pit road with no pit speed. And, you know, there's specific rules that are different from the regular ones where the picker guys can jump over and actually service the car. How about we make it so the driver has to unbuckle, take down the
Yes.
window net, change all 4 tires, fill it up with fuel, which is, you know, it's going to be like 2 seconds of fuel because they only ran qualifying laps, and jump back in. You have to make sure that they're perfectly strapped back into the car so there's nobody just jumping in and not putting the seatbelts on and just vrooming. You got to have an official make sure everything is on right.
I would
And-
pay to see Mike Harmon do that.
Oh my
Mike Har-
god.
Mike Harmon would set a new track record. He's probably the only he's probably the only driver who can actually lift tires besides like Matt DiBenedetto. So he actually probably has an advantage.
Slow and steady.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine somebody like Joey Logano carrying a tire
Oh,
around the
frick.
race car? But yeah, either way, there's a lot of creative things they can do with this for all-star races or something like that. But either way, on your weekly to weekly kind of basis, that's not going to change anything. We're still going to see probably the same amount of pit stops. We're going to see the same people jumping over the wall. And I don't think there's anything too negative from this. I think once people see this play out about a month or two, they'll probably forget about it. Or if maybe some people will come to like it if there's anything cool about it. You know, it's not going to be the same kind of noise. You're not going to hear 5 times. You're going to hear 1, but it's really
Yeah.
not.
It's like and it's kind of a byproduct. I saw a lot of people with more, knowledge about the mechanical side of the sport and stuff like that, talking about how it really has to do with the fact that they're making the wheel itself bigger, not the tire, but like the wheel inside the tire bigger. And because of that, like they need something more structurally sound to make it safe and like completely viable to have that happen. And something that comes from having a effectively thinner tire is less lateral grip from each tire, because there's not so much sidewall, so the tire can't flex as much to create that grip when you go into the corner or whatever. And so, I mean, not that like on paper, like just by default is better, but for something like what they're seeming to aim for with a car that might have less power, I mean, it might just be 550 still, which we're seeing at, I don't know, like at least half of the racetracks this season and last season. But with something like that, then it still creates more emphasis on mechanical grip. Like you have to have the car set up, because if you look back at like the early 2000s and stuff like that, when everything was like kind of had been the same for a long time, you had smaller teams like MB2 and stuff like that could figure things out in the setup and with the car, like not money wise, but just knowledge wise and like trial and error, that can make them qualify like top 5 and then run top 10 in the race and beat teams like DEI and Hendrick and Roush and other teams like that. And I think obviously not at the very beginning, but I think in the long run, with some of the things that NASCAR is trying to do, I mean, besides the price tag that Kyle Busch said is on this new car, I think it will lead to just a more competitive field. And just kind of lead to stuff like we're seeing in the Xfinity series now, because that kind of falls under the category of it's been the same since, like, obviously they've changed some aero parts and stuff like that, like minor stuff like spoiler since the COT came in like 2010. But for the most part, those cars are generally the same, and so you can see people with knowledge like RSS and stuff like that perform, and Jeremy Clements' team start to perform better on a weekly basis, and just kind of build from that knowledge to have cars that are competitive with Joe Gibbs Racing and Penske and Stuart Haas and all the top teams that you'd think of when you think of cars that are running up front.
Not to interrupt, Matt, but we have some breaking news.
Is it the same thing I'm looking at?
Sirens are going off. The 15 team has
Yep.
been sold to Rick Ware Racing.
Premium Motorsports in general.
Yeah, the way that this reads is that it will operate as the 77 car.
No.
The
They'll
one
operate the 77 on behalf of Spire.
Oh, okay.
So it'll still be Spire for the 77, but the 15 car is now owned by Rick Ware Racing.
This has implications too, because we've been hearing rumors a while, and I guess it's fair to talk about them now that this has happened, that the 96 team is trying to pick up a charter. This could be how it happens. It could be a weird mid-season kind of a deal. I don't think we've ever seen one of these with the charter before, but as long as NASCAR approves it, we could have some shakeups. That would definitely help fund the 96 team. It would help prevent them from missing a race, like say like Talladega or something, should we get more than 40 people. That could be very interesting, but that's not confirmed yet. All that has been is that the 15 team is now a Rick Ware Racing team.
Yep.
Wow.
Rick Ware Racing really taking a monopoly on the latter part of the field.
Well, this actually also means they can't have the fleet of cars we've come to know and love of like 7 cars that start with 5.
I mean, they could.
I
If
mean,
they're
yeah,
operating Spire Motorsports, they could just.
you're right. They could
enter
do it
one
under a
under
different
Spire.
banner. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, we're gonna see like 8 Rick Ware cars in the track one day, and it's gonna be amazing.
They're gonna have their own race, just like chilling in their position
Garrett
on the track,
Smithley?
which is
To see who can last the longest.
the
Garrett
back half.
Smithley and 7 Garrett Smithley clones just battle it out. Somebody will get 33rd. We don't know
featuring
which.
Joey Gase.
Wow, hard to build off that incredible breaking news, but we do
Ooh.
have picks to make. Ooh,
Before
sorry.
we do that, I want to mention one thing.
Go
The Joey Gase is, being in the race at Auto Club this past weekend in the 53 car was the first time since the Lindsay Lohan Herbie movie came out that a 53 car has made a start at Auto Club Speedway, and I thought that was pretty wild to think about.
Let's just keep coming.
Yeah, I mean,
More breaking news, evidently, because I didn't know that either. That's about as important as the last thing we just said.
yeah, that's just a little fun fact. Not as fun of a fact as Jimmy Johnson completing every single lap at Auto Club Speedway since 2002, even including, I think it was 2012 or 20. I think it was 2012 when the race ended up rain shortened because he had a mechanical problem happen and was going to be out of the race, but that happened like right before the rain came. So he still was able to complete every single lap since his first start at Auto Club, which he won. And I don't know, that's an even more fun fact than a Lindsay Lohan movie. But yeah, like the picks, yeah.
Yeah, so anyways, last week, an incredibly rough week for picks. The only person who picked anybody that was kind of in contention was Jake, who picked Kyle Busch. Actually, that's not true. Arnold picked Ryan Blaney, but the tire gods decided that was not going to happen.
Yeah.
Matt picked Kyle Larson. Denny Hamlin decided that was not going to happen.
Yeah.
I picked the wrong Hendrick car and Chase Elliott. So we're hoping to bounce back this week. We got another 4 group of drivers that we're going to pick. I'm going to start off by picking the person that I'm sure somebody else wanted to pick in Kevin Harvick. This has been a Kevin Harvick track. This is pretty much just Kevin Harvick Motor Speedway. As dominant as Jimmy Johnson is at Auto Club, Auto Club, that's still a sponsor. That's pretty much the same thing that Kevin Harvick has been able to do at ISM Phoenix, actually. Wow, a lot of sponsorship weird things going on right now. It is Phoenix,
Gordon
right?
Raceway.
Yeah, it's been Jeff Gordon Raceway, it's been ISM, it's been Phoenix. The only thing I hope it isn't is garbage, because let's face it, this is the first race without high downforce in Phoenix in a really long time. Last year's races were hideous. Hideous. Like, if there was ever a race you could have skipped last year, it was one of the races at Phoenix. And this is going to be a really important race. First one, low downforce. Obviously, they finished the season here this year, so this is going to be a really indicator if you should just skip the last race of the season. But nonetheless, my pick is Kevin Harvick in the 4 car.
All right. I guess I'll go ahead and jump in and get my pick out of the way. We're going to go with the number 1 car of Kurt Busch.
Oh.
he does pretty good around Phoenix. So we'll see how it is.
Yeah, he's won there.
He's won there. He's got a good average finish. He's always seems to be in contention at the end of the race. So we'll see how it plays out. See if they can play some strategy, and see if we can get the dub.
Personally, I wanted to pick a Chevy, but I feel like after the last 3 weeks of disappointment, after feeling so good so late in the race, I think Ryan Blaney is going to finally get that W for the season. There's got to be too much fire in the seat of his pants and the seat of everyone on his team's pants to get it done. And he's not bad there. It's not like Richmond where he despised for the longest time, and now, I mean, he still doesn't run the best there, but he's figured it out. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be Ryan Blaney finally, 4th race in, or he's either going to win or run really, really well, and something unfortunate's going to happen. So I'm going with Ryan Blaney.
And I was going to pick Harvick, but now that I had time to reconsider, I'm kind of glad that you took him, because, well, it would have been an equal pick, honestly, but because it's the first low downforce race in over a year, I'm going to have to go with a certified experience wheelman, so I'm going to go with the crybaby himself, Kyle Busch.
Ooh. We got Kyle Busch picked 2 weeks in a row, as well as Ryan Blaney and Kurt Busch. Well, no, I didn't pick Kurt last week.
I was going to say, I think Kurt Busch is the most picked driver, which is kind of surprising, because there's really no indication that he should have been winning any of the races so far, but somehow every week other than last week, he's found his way on here, which is pretty cool.
By the way, the crybaby comment is satire. Please don't bitch about that.
I guess we could leave that. It's your channel, whatever.
Yeah,
anyway.
I make the decision.
This is my house. But anyway.
My corner.
Anyways, those are our picks for this week. Really quick, I just want to give a shout out to all of us. You can follow everybody, including the show, on Twitter. We'll have all those links in the description. We'll have Matt's photography link in the description. He has an Instagram page where he takes photos for not only NASCAR teams, but IMSA teams sometimes. Sometimes he's at drift shows.
Usually it's just for my sake.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nonetheless, make sure to check it out. Make sure to follow the show on YouTube. If you have not subscribed to Mike already for some reason, make sure you hit subscribe. If you want to be really, really ambitious and really support everybody, make sure you hit the bell so if YouTube decides it's not going to show the video on your homepage, you'll still find it.
Shout out Adam Garcia and Carnation.
Absolutely.
Well, my 8-wide racing.
Oh, that's another thing. So this is not something that's planned. I'm going off the dome here, so hopefully this makes it as the final cut. But if you guys are interested in possibly seeing a "Where's My 8-Wide Racing" shirt, please let a comment or drop a comment telling if you'd like that or not, because it seems like we've seen that everywhere on social media. And if you guys are actually willing to wear merch for some reason, we'd totally be willing to put that out.
Capitalism.
Yeah, please pay us, essentially is what I'm saying here. We don't have any sponsors. Not a single one.
And if you do want to sponsor us.
Oh, yeah. And also, we are going to still have the Twitter page up and operationable. That's not a word. I need to go to college again. Please pay us. But anyway, anybody else have anything they want to add?
Not really.
Nope. Well,
good weekend. I was just a very good weekend of NASCAR. I felt really good about it, and I feel like really excited about this season at this point.
It's like the famous Simpsons line. Say the line, Mike.
Until next week, we'll see you next week.